I'm 58 years old. I have about 7 to 10 partners a year. You asked if I had thought of using any kind of protection, and I have not.
My ex probably got it from a homosexual act.
One time a condom came off. He assured me that everything would be fine, that he'd been tested, he was negative. So I didn't worry. I believed him. I had no reason not to. He seemed like a fine, honest young man and healthy, and no reason to doubt his word.
I didn't find out until 2001 that I was positive, because most of us been married for so many years, doctors don't test you. They say, oh, you're not at risk, there's nothing wrong with you. A lot of times these doctors, they don't check you like they should.
This handsome, charming man moves into the building, very popular, very well liked by the ladies. This individual started to get sick. By the end of the summer, he passed away.
The departments of health didn't give it a broad stroke and say, well, anybody could contract this disease. So, unfortunately, I didn't think that it impacted me, since I wasn't white, I wasn't gay, I didn't live in Haiti, so it didn't impact me directly or otherwise. That was the myth.
New York City is the epicenter for HIV/AIDS. Over 100,000 New Yorkers have HIV, and of these, over 1/3 are 50 years or older, and nearly 3/4 are 40 years and older. With the advances in medicine, many people with HIV are living longer. But are they living better? And how are older adults facing the fact that they actually are at risk? Or are they?
Six years before I came into the City Council, I started doing work with a nonprofit that served as a sponsor for the senior housing that Mom spoke about earlier. And this man moves into the building, handsome, charming, very well liked, very popular, very well liked by the ladies. He was very helpful. In the summer of 2006, right after we held the hearing, the joint hearing in the council on growing older with HIV and AIDS, this individual started to get sick and started to display behaviors that mirrored that of dementia. It happened very quickly. He went from being okay to being very sick. By the end of the summer, he passed away. The experience that we had in this case is not unique. We know that seniors are having sex, and I think when you look at the number of lives that this man touched, I suspect and know that none of these women ever in their wildest dreams thought they would have to confront a situation where they're engaging in sex and maybe contracted the HIV virus because of their sexual activity at their age.
I'm a 48-year-old Hispanic woman that's HIV positive. I got infected through my husband. I was married for 17 years. I saw him with a syringe stuck in his vein. That's when I found out he was using. I knew one or two other persons he had used with was infected, so I wouldn't let him touch me. So I thought I was safe. He died in 1996. He found out when he was on his deathbed that he was HIV positive. 5 years later, I found out that I was HIV positive. Sometimes when you go to the doctors to get tested, because you're put in a certain category, you're a working person, you've been with one partner for so many years, they won't check you for HIV. And when you do go to these clinics and that they check you, they tell you they're checking you, but they're actually not. So I might have been positive all that time, and the doctor kept telling me, you're fine. I would go every 6 months. He says, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. One March, I got really, really sick. And when I went to the hospital, They took the test because I was already in going into comatose, and that's when I found out that I was HIV positive in 2001. Because I was married for 17 years, and I said, what person in their right mind is gonna use protection when I'm not gonna have no more children? Why am I gonna get protected from what?
My wife knows next to nothing about this. I'm 58 years old, and it's been both meeting people and the internet dating sites, and I've been very explicit that I am married. I'm not looking to break up that marriage. But to have a sexual relationship with people who are looking for the same thing. I had an affair with a mother who was going through a divorce and was looking for some real intimacy and release, and it was a very, very sexually charged affair. Another woman was older, in her late 60s, and her husband was dying, wheelchair bound. In terms of the sex, I've taken what safeguards I can. But you can only ask them and check them out, make sure they have no obvious signs of HIV or and so far I've been doing this for several years now. I have not had even a single case of an STD. So it seems to be it only takes one slip, I know. But that's the situation, yeah.
Well, I like music, I like the opera and classical music, theater. I like the cultural life here in New York. It's very rich. I try to take advantage of it as much as I can now that I'm finally living here. I was married for 24 years. I was married pretty young, right out of college. We had kids right away. My wife and I lived parallel lives. We were together, we ran our house like a business. There was just no passion. We did everything well. Our kids came out terrific. They're well-educated, interested, wonderful people. I told her several years ago that I was gay, that I just, that's the truth, that's what it was, and it wasn't her fault. There was nothing she could do. We decided to stay together until the kids were out of the house. Earlier in the year, I went on a conference for my job, and while I was there, I met a young man. We liked each other. We spent a couple of days together. It was my first experience. I'd never spent a night with a man before. It was new and exciting, and I suppose I was sort of inexperienced, and I thought we were being safe. We used condoms. One time a condom came off. He assured me that everything would be fine, that he'd been tested. He was negative, and so I didn't worry. I believed him. I had no reason not to. He seemed like a fine, honest young man and healthy, and no reason to doubt his word. When I got back to New York, after a while, I had a bad cold. I couldn't seem to shake it. I went to the doctor. He suggested I have an HIV test. I never expected it would come back positive. I called the young man. I told him what had happened. He asked if I was certain that I'd contracted the disease from him, and I assured him that yes, I had. I hadn't been with anyone else. He said he'd been tested and that it had come back negative, but since then he's been tested again, and he is positive, apparently, or obviously from the time he was tested and our meeting, he contracted HIV, which I then contracted from him.
In 1985, I met a guy who was born and raised in Connecticut. he's a nice guy. I never met a guy so nice before. Hazel eyes, he was handsome. He told me he was the star football player on his high school team. And I was like in my early 30s, but I was feeling this, I guess because I never lived it before. He was in drugs too. That's how I met him. We were both buying. So I told him, I said, let's you and I go to Connecticut and start over again. So we did. We went up to Connecticut. I started working at one job, and he started working at a restaurant. We found a place. His mother helped us find an apartment. I was really enjoying myself. Really had a good time until this man got sick. I don't know if I asked him, but I'm thinking that he told me he had pneumonia. And I'm visiting him, and I'm going home, not even thinking about nothing. You know, I know he's going to get better, he's going to come home. When he did come home, he told me, he says, you know, I have HIV. So he said, you need to go and see my doctor. I was nervous the whole time, working and nervous. He told me over the phone, he says, yeah, you have it too. I was just too devastated. I got immediately scared. Immediately I thought I was going to die, because he had told me I need to get my affairs in order because I didn't have too much time left. When he told me he had the virus, he also told me in the same breath that he was gay. That was it. I ran from him. I never saw him again. Never saw him. I don't know if I got it because he was homosexual or because we were using drugs. I'm drug-free, I'm alcohol-free, and I am truly living now. There are things that I want to soar, play in, do, but this neuropathy, it seems to stop me somewhat. I look forward to 20 more years. I really do. And I look forward to the aging process, which I used to be extremely afraid of. Getting old meant death, and I was afraid of death. Getting older, I realized all of these things is what nature brings. People die. And there's a sort of beauty and a sweet ending to that.
I'm a single, heterosexual black man. My current status, and it has been for nearly 20 years now, I'm HIV positive since August of 1988. Well, I was functioning 50, 60, 70 hours a week on a job, and on the weekends I would engage in drug behavior. And I probably was walking around with the virus prior to that and didn't know it, as many people are today. And that's why there's a need for educating not just the seniors, but also the family in general, because we want zero infection rate. But more importantly, living with the virus today is something that anyone can do. Many people have a misconception where they feel that in aging, the impact of being diagnosed with the virus is now a death sentence. But I say no, and I would suspect that many clinicians and service providers would say the same thing. But one thing I want to point out, however, is if an older adult contracts the virus, and if they fail to get into treatment early on, the progression of the disease is more rapid in an older adult than it is in a younger adult. Don't have fear. Although there is still stigma and discrimination, that can be combated if we talk about it more. talk about it as openly as possible, have dialogue, not just with your age group, but with cross generations. People are going to have to begin to realize that we need to work more closely together if we're going to combat this disease. And take, for instance, what comes to mind right now is the reaction that everyone had after 9/11, 2001. I mean, all communities came together and bridged the gap of solidarity. So why does it take such a devastating experience for everyone to understand that we need to do that more? Because we came together then in hard times. We need to come together now.